I get a lot of questions from artists, and that makes sense. Like, my general output is generally very like artist education friendly, and sometimes in the content I put out, I don't necessarily answer everybody's questions perfectly, so people establish direct communication with me sometimes. And for a long time, I was allowing that to happen within the context of like direct messages, and that was working out fine until I started getting lots of messages, and then I had to come up with a new system. So my new system was I built a little website, and on that website there's a contact form, and I say, hey, if you have any questions, please fill out this form, because within all of my direct messages, I'm missing a lot of them and I don't want to miss them. So I shifted that communication over to the website. Now, yesterday I was asked a really interesting question, and I thought it was especially interesting because it's something that I am going through and have been going through for about the last month or so. The question is, you ever just feel like you've peaked and don't have anything left to offer? The answer to that question is yes. For me, what that looked like was this. For about the last year, I've been basically saying the same thing, trying to encourage artists to become better entrepreneurs so that they can create lives on their terms. And the way to do that is, it's simple, but not easy. It's discipline, consistency, patience. It's telling great stories to people who care and using the technology to do that, right? That's basically been everything that I've said over the last year or so. Now, a lot of that has had a very entrepreneurial spin to it. I've kind of become like the small music business guy, and that's fine. And I like being the business guy. But I don't necessarily think that that's the only thing that I am. Like, in my core, I'm an artist. Like, I grew up drawing and painting and writing music, and I don't want to just be like the Gary Vee of music. So a few months ago, I was just feeling sort of frustrated by the fact that I just felt like I had explored everything business-wise that I really wanted to. I felt like I had said everything that I needed to say, and that I was just sort of feeling stuck. Now, I think that a lot of that feeling of peaking, especially for artists, is the feeling of having already gone over the territory you're currently exploring. Now, the way that I dealt with that, I basically went back to the lab and started creating things for myself, sort of in a vacuum. And what I started making was little films, like little home movies and stuff like that, because I've always had just an interest in filmmaking. I felt like it combines a bunch of adjacent skill sets that I have. So I kind of took a step back from my overall output. Some of you may have noticed, like, I've been posting maybe a little bit less content than usual, and I just allowed myself to dive into filmmaking. And what's been really cool about that is, by exploring this new interest, while I was feeling stagnant and didn't feel like I had anything to share with my audience before, because I had just sort of explored all of that like entrepreneurial hustle and grind territory, I'm starting to feel like I have more things to talk about when it comes to storytelling. And then that sort of complements what I had been doing before, which is like, okay, but here's the mechanics of how the business works. So here's my short answer to that question. I think what you should do is go back to the lab, just start creating things, start exploring the fringes of your creativity. Allow yourself to be inspired by things that you wouldn't necessarily normally be inspired by, because you had unnecessarily walled off certain aspects of yourself because you were trying to fit into like this prior mold. Like, just go get really weird with it, and then maybe eventually you'll want to take that creativity and share it with your audience. And the truth is, like, there's no rush. Most of the people that I talk to are younger than 30. they and I and we could probably fuck around for the next 5 to 10 years and then get started and still have plenty of time to do everything we want to do. So the important thing isn't necessarily that you're like doing it now and that it all happens within the next 6 months. The more important thing is that you allow yourself the space to have something to say regardless of how long that takes or what that journey looks like. I think a lot of us look at these young people who are like in their late teens, early 20s, out on the road doing the thing, and think that like that's how it should be done. But the truth is that for a lot of us, that's not our journey. I mean, I'm almost 30 and I just run 2 little businesses that pay for my cheap house and cheap car, and like that's my life. But I don't have this like crazy lifestyle. So just be careful about the comparison thing, because it will cause you to artificially try to follow somebody else's journey when maybe your creativity is meant to turn into a full-time career when you're in your 40s. You wouldn't be the first person that happened to. It's just somebody else's journey is not your journey, and the only thing that you can do is explore what it means to be a creator for you and focus on the work, focus on creating good stuff and trying to connect it with people who will appreciate it enough to support you with their hard-earned dollars.